Hello everyone, ex-Wallkill Bethelite here. And Jehovah's Witnesses may as well go ahead and buy stock in alcoholic beverages if they haven't already. Every time I see an alcoholic beverage, I think about Jehovah's Witnesses, Tony Morris, most of Bethel. I think about them whenever I see alcohol now. And I'm about to taste this Smirnoff red, white, and berry for the first time. And again, I'm probably doing a commercial right now for an alcoholic beverage that Watchtower probably has stocks in, as far as we know. Let's see what it's like. It's pretty good. That is actually pretty good. And let's talk a little bit about something that Jehovah's Witnesses, or Hovies, as I like to call them, say from time to time. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. This is what Hovies like to say. We probably have all heard it, because I've heard it from way back from years ago. This is a Hovie saying here. And it's in regards to the inaccuracies with Watchtower's predictions. Jehovah's Witnesses, or Hovies, like to say that it's better that Watchtower has made mistakes and has admitted to making mistakes. They are happy that Watchtower is humble enough to say that it makes mistakes in its teachings and then try to correct them. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard it. I'm sure you guys have heard that from Jehovah's Witnesses when they try to get around the false teachings that Watchtowers had and have had to change. Well, there's a slight problem with that. The saying that it's good that Watchtower is humble enough to say that they're wrong. There's a few problems with that. Number one, Watchtower doesn't say that it's wrong until it's painfully obvious and they have to. Obviously, if they state that the end of the world will probably be 1975 and 1975 passes and it's 1980, it's not humility that caused them to make a change or to try to wiggle out of it. It's painfully obvious that they got it wrong. They had to change it. The same with the 1914 generation that will never pass away before the end of the world teaching. Well, once it got to the point where they would pretty much be, 1,000,000 years old, they had to change it. It wasn't humility, they had to. There was no choice. It was obviously wrong. So that's one. Now, number two, you would not pick an auto mechanic who, when you go to get your oil change, puts radiator fluid where the oil should be, and oil where the radiator fluid should be, and puts brake fluid in the windshield wiper fluid container, and then puts windshield wiper fluid in the brake fluid container. And then says, you know what? I am humble enough to say that I just screwed your car all up. Say, would you appreciate that? Is that the you know what? I'm going to keep bringing my car back to you. If your auto mechanic takes your engine and instead of putting it where it ought to be, puts it in the trunk instead of under the hood, you get in your car, won't start, messes up your whole day, can't even get it out of the mechanic shop. Mechanic says, well, I'm humble enough to say that I put your engine in the trunk instead of under the. So you mean to tell me you're going to select that particular auto mechanic that is extremely inaccurate in his work, and you're going to pick him because he's humble enough to tell you when he screwed up your car? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This thing Jehovah's Witnesses say that, well, at least Watchtower is humble enough to admit its mistakes. You don't select a religious organization based off of how humble they are when they screw up. They shouldn't be screwing up. The same is true with an auto mechanic or any other position of importance. Your doctor, for example. You go home after going to get a prescription from your doctor because of major allergies. And you take your prescription and you end up having an erection for 8 days. Well, if your doctor has prescribed you Viagra, Viagra Extreme Plus Plus, instead of giving you your allergy medicine, and he calls you and says, you know, I'm humble enough to tell you that I screwed up your prescription. Sorry for the embarrassment walking in public like that. I'm sure you appreciate me more as your doctor because of me screwing up and then telling you that I screwed up. There are certain people in your life that you value because of accuracy, not inaccuracy and having to tell you that they screwed up, which is the case for Watchtower. So I've heard this statement growing up that, well, at least Watchtower is humble enough to admit that they're screwing up, as if that is a good thing. I've heard that growing up, but then I heard it again when I was watching a video from a gentleman who went to a cart. I guess you could call it a cart crash. It was a very civil conversation. And I believe he brought up the inaccuracies with Watchtower, and the woman stood there and says something to the effect, well, I'm happy Watchtower makes mistakes, and then we get to see how humble they are when they tell us that they screwed up. I could hear the echo coming from inside of her head. There was nothing in there. There is no way in the world you select your religious direction based off of how humble a screw-up is. That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard, and it's not just one Hovey that says it. I heard this woman say it as I was watching the cart crash. I've heard it said multiple times by multiple people growing up as a JW. And it just proves that in mass, when I say in mass, I mean all Jehovah's Witnesses for the most part put together, they have no common sense. These people walk around with book bags and they have no common sense. They got a shirt and a tie on. They got a full suit. And you have someone with no sense at all walking around in a dress suit with a briefcase. It's a wonder they know how to even get the briefcase open. And I have seen a few Jehovah's Witnesses in the past when they had the briefcases. I don't know if they still use them anymore. But let's take another sip of this. That's good. The briefcases that had the little combination, and then you squeeze the metal parts on the sides and it pops open. Well, there were briefcases back in the day that some Jehovah's Witnesses used that had that feature on it, and I've seen a few times that gets scrambled around a little bit, and you got a JW that can't get his books out at the meeting because he can't figure out how to open up his briefcase. I'm telling you, you're talking about idiots in cheap suits. You know, I mean, it is what it is. You got just pure idiocracy standing next to carts. I mean, just dumb. Just dumb. Now, granted, you have kids, you got people that are born and raised in, and especially while you're a child, you know, you're not that's not considered dumb because your parents taught you something. Because, you know, kids still believe in cartoons and all kinds of stuff. You know, they're not adults yet. So we don't hold them to adult standards. So I don't think the kids that are Jehovah's Witnesses are stupid. I think the kids that are Jehovah's Witnesses need to be taken out of those cult members' homes. Those kids need to be taken out of those hovies' homes and put somewhere where they can have a good and loving home. Because you got kids that are going to be raised not to go to college, not to get an education. You got kids that are going to be brought around all kinds of strange men to get in their cars for quote-unquote field service. You got kids that are going to be molested sexually in that organization, and the parents and everybody else is going to turn their backs on them because they don't want the organization to look bad, which it already does look bad. You got all these people standing next to carts who are on video with people approaching them and asking them questions, and you just see the stupidity coming out of their mouths. They already look dumb. They already look bad. I don't think I've seen a single video of a car crash or a debate with a Jehovah's Witness where the Jehovah's Witness won the debate or even had a decent argument. They're just complete empty-headed people standing next to inaccurate Bible literature. It's exactly what it is. A really dumb person standing next to a cart with inaccurate literature attached to it. Complete ridiculousness. Complete ridiculousness. And, you know, it's no wonder that Toni Morris's drinking problem is not an issue for Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not an issue because, you know, they're drunk with stupidity. They're drunk without even any alcohol. These people standing next to these carts, all dilly and stupid. They're drunk with stupidity. They're all alcoholics. If you look at it from that angle. So, you know, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this phrase. Have you heard it before? I'm sure you've heard it. Whenever you mention how inaccurate Watchtower has been, how they've gotten stuff wrong, oh, that's old literature, and, you know, well, it wasn't always old. It was new at one point in time. Just like the literature that they have today is new and just as inaccurate. And then they also say, well, we're humble enough to admit when we're wrong. You know, it's just pure stupidity. So comment down below. Let me know what you think. X-Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.